Hello and welcome back to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and today, since we are on a bank holiday weekend here in the UK, it is of course Easter weekend. Traditional markets are going to be closed, so we will cover a little bit of Bitcoin, keep it short and sweet. So let's get into it. The chart of Bitcoin, as you probably are aware, hasn't really done much. We are still just sort of trending sideways. This is of course better than just bleeding out. I've made my point on what I think about Bitcoin more than clear on this channel, so we'll move on to the news. We've got this here from FX Street. What are the odds of a 2022 bull run? We are holding 40k for now, so that is good. The on-chain metrics are quite interesting. I will show you some of these in a minute. They tend not to be immediate indicators, but with a slightly longer term view, they have proven very powerful in the past. For the short to mid-term scenario, Bitcoin is likely to trigger a run up to 50k. This is pointing to the fact that we have 3 higher lows and 3 higher highs. That sort of suggests we are in this parallel channel, and does agree with my sort of thesis that we will eventually just make it up into our purple zone here. We can take a look at some of the on-chain metrics. Supply on exchanges and net exchange position change. So the first of these two tracks the number of Bitcoin held on centralized entities and can serve as a guesstimation of the selling pressure if things go wrong. So typically a spike in this metric often leads to a sell-off. However, for Bitcoin, this indicator has been in a downtrend since March 2020, and the total number of Bitcoin held on exchanges has dropped to 1.9 million, which is a level not seen since the 6th of December in 2018, indicating that investors are confident in the performance of Bitcoin price. When a lot of Bitcoin starts to be moved out of cold storage and to exchanges, the only real reason you would do that, to move your Bitcoin to an exchange, is to sell it. And so conversely, if you buy some Bitcoin on an exchange and then withdraw it off of the exchange, that kind of suggests that you would not have any intention of selling it soon, which is bullish for Bitcoin. This goes on to say that since March 2022, nearly 100,000 Bitcoin have left exchanges, and this extent of outflow was only witnessed 5 times in this decade-long history of Bitcoin. And all of this together indicates that investors are betting on the performance of Bitcoin over the longer time frame. And finally, the balance of addresses. This index shows where there's been a net increase of whales holding between 100,000 and a million Bitcoin. And this has increased from 2.93% in December of 2021 to 3.47 as of the time of writing. And frankly, this is institutional buying, and so whenever you have institutional buying, they can usually drive the market up significantly higher. You have tech dev calling for an impulse and suggesting that the dollar is approaching a local top potentially. So if the dollar can actually find its top and roll over, then you would expect Bitcoin to do very well. At least that's what's always happened historically. It's my personal view that we've got a couple more weeks, maybe a few more weeks, until we can actually find a top for the dollar. The dollar is completing the ascending portion of its 3-year cycle and will soon be beginning the declining portion of its 3-year cycle, but I do think we're a couple of weeks away from that yet. Following on from our institutional thesis or theory, you can see that this is sort of being backed up in this article from Cointelegraph. This article is suggesting that institutional buying could become a big narrative again, as over 30,000 Bitcoin has left Coinbase. Regardless of price action, institutional players are putting their money where their mouth is. And whilst the price may be concerning to some people, the data does show that the demand from institutional investors is continuing to increase. There's a nice visual here. You can see each one of these green spots sort of highlights the large spikes in volume that you would typically associate with whales and institutional buying, and we have had a spike here and here of late, particularly now. We got this from the Motley Fool. Bitcoin could be worth 1 million in 2030. I think it's going to be worth significantly more than 1 million in 2030. So this is sort of taken from this Cathy Wood, the CEO of ARK Invest. They've done some number crunching and they come up with this sort of 500,000 by 2026. And predicted that Bitcoin would surpass 1 million by 2030. So this goes on to say that it will mostly be driven by widespread adoption. If you haven't seen our previous video on this, I'll put a card in the top corner now. We also have Michael Saylor, the CEO of Microstrategy, calling his Bitcoin play a tremendous success and promising to buy more Bitcoin. Saylor will likely go down in history now as either being the greatest financial genius of all time or the worst. He's put so much money and his entire name and his company's name into Bitcoin, and they've acquired so much Bitcoin now that it is really binary. Either Bitcoin becomes an enormous success and he will go down as the biggest genius or one of the biggest financial geniuses ever, or if anything were to happen to Bitcoin, then of course he would be the guy that put all his money into Bitcoin only for it to collapse to zero. So of course all eyes will be on him over the coming decade. Following on from this, there's another article here in which MicroStrategy shareholders received a letter that said, "Will vigorously pursue more Bitcoin buys." This article goes on to say that Saylor's publicly traded company is the largest single wallet holder of Bitcoin in the world, with 129,218 Bitcoin, currently being valued at around 5.1 billion. MicroStrategy even bought an additional 4,197 more Bitcoins on April the 5th. By comparison, Tesla, MicroStrategy's runner-up in the holding race, owns 43,200 Bitcoin valued at about 1.7 billion, which I believe they paid about 1.5 billion for. So you can see what I said earlier about this decision being binary for Saylor. He will either go down in history as a genius or he won't. And this sort of speaks to the advantage of buying and holding Bitcoin over a longer term. Saylor's only paid 3.9 billion for the Bitcoin in its treasury, which translates to a $1.2 billion profit. And so just to wrap up, I will leave you with this. This shows the first, second, third and fourth halving cycle. So I'll leave you with this as I think it's rather poignant. Until next time, I'm your boy Camel. Take care.